I used to live in a quiet little neighborhood, a place where everybody knew each other and life was simple. We were all pretty close-knit, so when a new neighbor moved in next door, it was bound to stir up some curiosity. My new neighbor, Mr. Harris, seemed like your average person at first. He waved hello and smiled, even introduced himself with a firm handshake. But as the days went by, I couldn't help but notice some strange things that struck me as odd was his gloves. I mean, who wears gloves all the time, even in the heat of summer? It didn't make sense. But I brushed it off, thinking maybe he had some sort of skin condition or just didn't like to show his hands. What really got me thinking, though, was his routine. Mr. Harris only seemed to come out at night. I would see him leave his house as the sun went down, and he would return just before the first rays of sunlight hit the neighborhood. It wasn't just once or twice, it was a consistent pattern. I couldn't help but talk to my other neighbors about it. We'd meet in the front yards or at the local bar and share our thoughts about Mr. Harris. Everyone was starting to get a bit uneasy about the whole thing. One evening, curiosity got the better of me, and I decided to investigate. I waited behind my curtains, peering out through the window. He walked to his car as Mr. Harris still wearing those gloves of his house and drove off. I couldn't resist the temptation to follow him. He drove to the edge of town, to an old, abandoned warehouse. I parked my car at a distance, watching him as he entered the dark, eerie building. I wasn't sure what he was up to, but it sent shivers down my spine. Maybe I'd watch for a little longer and see what he did. Hours went by, and I was growing impatient. I needed to know what he was hiding in there. So I gathered my courage and decided to sneak inside the warehouse. As I tiptoed through the rusty doors, the darkness engulfed me. The only light was coming from a flickering bulb hanging from the ceiling. My heart pounded, and every creak of the floorboards felt like a thunderclap in the silence. I followed a dim corridor and finally came across a door slightly ajar. The strange sound of whispers drew me closer. I pushed the door open gently and peered inside. What I saw made my blood run cold. Mr. Harris was standing in a dimly lit room, surrounded by shelves filled with jars. But these weren't just any jars. They contained hands, dozens of them. Each jar had a label with a name written on it. It was like a sick trophy collection. My heart raced and I had to stifle a gasp. What kind of person keeps severed hands in their possession? I couldn't bear to stay any longer, fearing that I might be the next one to lose my hand and have it preserved in one of those gruesome jars. I retreated as quietly as I could, making my way back through the warehouse and finally out into the night. My mind was racing with thoughts of what I'd seen, and I couldn't get back home fast enough. I decided not to confront Mr. Harris directly, fearing for my safety. Instead, I contacted the authorities and shared everything I'd witnessed. They launched an investigation, and it turns out Mr. Harris had a dark and twisted past involving criminal activities that I couldn't even fathom. He was arrested, and the gruesome evidence I'd stumbled upon was enough to put him behind bars for a long, long time. The neighborhood breathed a collective sigh of relief, knowing we were safe from whatever horrors he might have had in store for us. It's strange how someone who seemed so ordinary at first turned out to be a living nightmare. It's a chilling reminder that you can never truly know what's lurking behind the facade of a seemingly average neighbor.
Subscribe for more videos.